What is up, everybody? Welcome to DFS by the Numbers. These are my Draftkings MMA picks for UFC 287. We have Israel Adesanya versus Alex Pereira 2.
I need all the wins, yeah. Harder than all of this. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out.
And we are back talking some DraftKings here for a very good card in UFC 287. Really looking forward to this one. I'm hoping all of these fights stay on the card, and I'm hoping after lock, all of the fights stay on after the card. That'd be very nice. But yeah, looking forward to this card. Loving this card from a DraftKings perspective as well. So yeah, looking forward to it quite a bit. Can't wait to talk about it as well. Before we get into all that, if you guys can please leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. I do appreciate that a ton. Before we get started, a couple things here. Now is a great time to sign up on DFSbythenumbers.com. Go check out that $10 MMA DFS option. With that, you get access to my MMA model with all my stats you see on my Friday and Saturday shows, access to my MMA optimizer. This probably adds the most value here, make up to 150 lineups. My DFS article that I do, it's actually out right now. I go through my fights to target, my fighter to fade, my play of the week. I go over my rankings. I give my underdog plays as well. Lots of stuff there. Access to Discord, just revamped the Discord up recently as well. GVP lineup percentages, and then targets and rankings. Lots of great stuff that you do not see on YouTube. Go check that out at DFSbythenumbers.com. This show is sponsored by Underdog Fantasy. Go to Underdog, sign up, use promo code DFSBTN for a 100% deposit match up to $100, and then I'll give my favorite underdog play of the week later in the show here. But I say we get into it, and let us start with these fight doesn't go to decision lines. And up top, we have Gerald Meerschaert going against Joseph Pfeiffer, minus 325 for that fight doesn't go to decision here. And yeah, I think this fight is the most likely fight to finish inside the distance, and I think these odds do indicate that, and I think it's a very good fight to target. I think both guys have finish upside here, whether it's a Joseph Pfeiffer first round, second round knockout, or whether it's a Gerald Meerschaert come from behind victory like he's known to do. Gerald Meerschaert is a guy that you can't ever count out. He's kind of like a Paul Craig, where Gerald Meerschaert is never favored in a fight. He's pretty much always the underdog, and he's always counted out, and then he just always finds a way to win. So yes, I think Joseph Pfeiffer goes out there and knocks out Gerald Meerschaert, but if this fight gets extended, if this fight hits the mat, Meerschaert is going to be very live. The guy has like 27 career submissions, so absolutely a fight you're going to want to target there. Next, we got Shalion Nuerdanbeke going against Steve Garcia. Very, very good fight to target here because for a couple reasons. For one, I think this has a decent likelihood of finishing inside the distance. I could see a scenario where it does go the distance, where Shalion is mixing in takedowns here, and if he does that, I still think he scores very well, but I think this fight's going to be very low owned, and I think both guys have a path to score well. If Steve Garcia wins, I see it being a finish. I don't see Steve Garcia going out there and winning a decision against Shalion Nuerdanbeke. Steve Garcia, very dangerous, and Shalion's been finished a lot. Like, Shalion's been finished, I think, like 6 times by sub, twice by knockout, so I think Steve Garcia is going to have an opportunity to find a finish, whether it's a submission off his back or whether it's a knockout on the feet. And then, like I said, if Shalion wins, I don't know if he finishes Steve Garcia, but I see him going out there mixing in takedowns, mixing in a lot of takedowns, and controlling the majority of the fight. So I think whoever wins this fight scores very well on DraftKings. It's early in the card, and I think this fight's going to be a pretty low-owned fight for the upside it has. So I do like this fight quite a bit from a DraftKings perspective. Next, we have Gilbert Burns, Jorge Masvidal. Not a ton of interest in this one, to be honest. I think it's going to be semi-high owned just because everybody knows Jorge Masvidal. Everybody knows Gilbert Burns. It's the co-main event. People really want to play this fight, but I'm not touching Gilbert Burns at 9,600. We'll talk more about that later. It's just, I think there's a lot better options that are cheaper than Gilbert Burns. I don't think Burns is going to run through Masvidal like a lot of people seem to think. I think Burns should win the fight, but I'm kind of leaning more towards decision at 9,600. I can't quite get there for Burns. Like, if anything, it's going to be some shots on Jorge Masvidal at 6,600, just because this is a fight that he could win. Like, would it really shock anybody if Masvidal was able to either A, stuff the takedowns and outpoint Burns across 3 rounds, or B, potentially knock out Burns? It wouldn't completely shock me. Yes, I obviously favor Burns, but my goodness, 6,600 for Masvidal is something that I have some interest in. But Burns, 9,600, no way, I'm staying away from that. And then the main event, Israel Adesanya, Alex Pereira. We'll talk a lot about this fight, but yeah, it's a fight I think you're going to want to target. Typically, I don't mind fading Israel Adesanya. I mean, there's a lot of fights where he wins the fight, and they're 5-round fights, and he doesn't score well, which is weird, in 5-round fights, because there's not a lot of wrestling. There's not a lot of finish upside for Adesanya. But his price here at 8,300 makes it so if he does win this fight, I think he could go out there and find his way on the optimal line just because he is so cheap compared to, where he usually is around the 9,000 range, right? So I don't hate Adesanya. I'm more so on the Pereira side. I think Pereira has the majority of the finish upside here. I like the pressure that Pereira brings. I like the danger factor that Pereira brings. So I'm going to have a lot of this main event, but I'm more so on the Alex Pereira side myself. But I think both guys are definitely in play here. And if I was to fade one, it would be Adesanya, but I'm not going to be fading Adesanya this week. All right, moving on to our core plays here. Carl Williams at 9,500. So something very interesting happened on DraftKings. We had Chase Sherman going against Chris Barnett, which, by the way, I'm very upset that Chris Barnett fell off the card. But in steps Carl Williams. So Chase Sherman was a big favorite against Chris Barnett. So Chase Sherman's salary was at 8,800, and then Carl Williams comes in against Chase Sherman, and Carl Williams is now, I think, the biggest favorite on the card, and they put him at 9,500. So we have Chase Sherman at 8,800, Carl Williams at 9,500, and they're facing each other, right? So it's very interesting here, and I think it's a fight that you're probably going to want to target, and I want to say both sides, but the majority of my lineups are going to have Carl Williams in it at 9,500. I mean, I think Carl Williams has the highest upside on the slate. I don't really think it's close. I mean, this guy can go out there and rack up 5, 6, 7 takedowns if he needs to. He can go out there and potentially finish Chase Sherman, who got submitted by Jake Collier of all people. I think Carl Williams has a ton of upside in this matchup. Carl Williams, very good wrestler, the willingness to wrestle, and Chase Sherman has the worst ground game in the heavyweight division. With that said, I think Chase Sherman at 8,800 is going to be a sneaky dart throw that I'll be looking at playing either for 15 to 20% of Chase Sherman. Just because if Chase Sherman does win, nobody's going to play him. He's going to be anywhere from 5 to 10% owned, because why would you play Chase Sherman at 8,800? But if he wins, it's probably a knockout, and he's probably going to be virtually unowned. So I will have some Chase Sherman, but Carl Williams is my highest exposed fighter on the slate. You cannot ignore the upside of Carl Williams in this matchup. But this is a fight I think is honestly borderline must target. I would be shocked if this fight didn't score well on either side, but mostly on the Carl Williams side myself. Joseph Pyfer, 8,700, another fight you're going to want to target. I like Joe Pyfer in this matchup. I like a lot of guys against Gerald Mearshart, and like I said, Mearshart always finds a way to get the job done. But yeah, Pyfer has solid wrestling, solid grappling. I'm hoping he uses that defensively to keep this on the feet, and if he does keep this on the feet, I think he has the better striking defense, and Joseph Pyfer hits like an absolute truck. Gerald Mearshart, no striking defense. The chin is questionable. I think Joseph Pyfer goes out there and knocks out Gerald Mearshart early on. But if this fight does get extended, if this fight does hit the mat at any point in time, you're going to be holding your breath, and Mearshart is absolutely in play anytime he fights, but I'm going to have a little bit more Joseph Pyfer this week at 8,700. Raul Rosas Jr., 9,100. Talk about upside. I think he's up there with Carl Williams in terms of guys with the highest ceilings. Raul Rosas Jr. has first round submission upside. He can go out there in the first round, take Christian Rodriguez's back, and choke him out shortly after. He can go out there and wrestle across 15 minutes, which would score even more than an early submission, right? So I think he has a ton of upside in a win. In a win, it's either a first-round sub or it's a 3-round decision where he's going out there and just getting takedown after takedown, control time after control time. Rodriguez, he can absolutely be taken down. He showed good submission defense against Jonathan Pierce, but I think Raul Rosas Jr. is going to have a good opportunity to find an early submission. I think Raul Rosas Jr.'s submission game is just off the charts, especially for his age, 18 years old. So I like Raul Rosas Jr. a lot. He's one of my favorite plays, but we will be talking about Rodriguez a little bit lower. I think it's another good fight to target here. And then Alex Pereira, 7,900. Talked about him a little bit. I like him in this matchup. Obviously he's 3-0 against Adesanya between kickboxing and MMA, and I don't expect Adesanya to go out. I know he's talking about going out there and wrestling Pereira across 5 rounds. I don't think he's going to do that. Adesanya is not a wrestler. Is he all of a sudden going to become a wrestler at 35 years old? I don't buy it personally. I think Alex Pereira is going to plot forward and eventually land that shot across 25 minutes. 25 minutes in the cage with Alex Pereira is a very long time. It only takes one. This guy hits like a truck. I think he knocks out Israel Adesanya. But again, it's another fight you want to target, but I'm going to have the majority of ownership on that Pereira side. GPP plays here are tournament plays. Jacqueline Amarim, 9,000. Really looking forward to the debut of Jacqueline Amarim. I don't think she's going to be crazily owned here. At 9,000, I think a lot of people either A, don't really know who she is, or B, might think it's a little bit too much for Jacqueline Amarim here. But yeah, 9,000 for someone in Jacqueline Amarim who's not seen a second round. And it's crazy that this is the case at strawweight. She's not seen a second round. She's been over one half of a round only once in her career. And yes, she's fighting nobody. She's fighting very low-level competition. But Amarim's credentials are just off the chart. She's a second-degree black belt in BJJ, multiple-time world champion in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. She's training at American Top Team. She's been there since 2020, so I'm hoping she's working on that wrestling. And she's still very young, and she's the younger fighter in this matchup. If this fight hits the mat, I think the fight's over shortly after. If this fight does not hit the mat and it turns out Sam Hughes is able to stuff these takedowns, Amarim could very well bust here. It's just, I like that first round upside that she brings to the table here. But this is another fight that I think is a really good one to target. Either side, I'm mostly on the Amarim side, but I think Sam Hughes, we'll talk about her in a little bit. I think she's pretty sneaky as well. But yeah, I love the first round upside for Amarim here, and I think she's going to be semi-low owned here. Israel Adesanya, 8,300. Not the biggest fan of Adesanya from a DraftKings perspective, but it's kind of the price for me. Like, we don't typically see him at 8,300. So if he does win this fight, maybe he does get takedowns. Maybe he does go out there and like he's saying, wrestles for 25 minutes. If he does that and he has success, he's going to score a ton of DraftKings points. He's going to score well over 100 if that's the case. I don't personally think that's the case, but if he goes out there and outpoints Pereira across 25 minutes, you're probably looking at 85 DraftKings points. Maybe he hurts and drops a Pereira at some point, maybe around 90, 95. But yeah, if he is able to wrestle, I think he could put up a pretty decent score here. So for that reason, for that potential wrestling upside in a win, I do like some Adesanya 8,300. But like I said, I'm not completely sold on that, and I will be having more Alex Pereira. Forget what my exact ownership is at the moment. I think I went around like 50% Pereira, like 40-something%, low 40s Adesanya. I have a ton of the main event, but I'm a little bit more so on the Pereira side. Adrian Yanez, 8,500. Another good fight to target. Adrian Yanez is going to have the finish upside here. I think he has all the finish upside. He also has a ton of volume as well. I think Rob Font can out-volume Yanez, though, but, Yanez is going to have the knockdown upside. Font's been knocked down 5 times in his last 2 fights, 5 times. So I am starting to question the durability of Rob Font. And if it turns out, there is, in fact, a decline in the durability of Rob Font, maybe Yanez can go out there and knock him out. So, yeah, I like Yanez here, 8,500. I'm actually more so on the dog of Font, though. We'll talk about him in a little bit just because of the price tag. But, yeah, I think Yanez has the finish upside in this matchup in particular. Shanlian Nurdenbeke, 8,900. We talked about him just a little bit. Takedown upside. Maybe he finishes Garcia. I mean, Garcia's very chinny, but I don't think Shanlian's going to want to strike with Steve Garcia. I think it's going to be takedowns, rinse and repeat. And yeah, if Shanlian wins, I expect it to actually be a decision. And I think he scores very well in that decision. So yeah, Shanlian, Nurdenbeke, I think you got to have some at 8,900. All right, 2-0 in terms of Underdog since I've been doing this. If you guys have not signed up on Underdog, check it out and use promo code DFSBTN for a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. Lots of stuff sticking out this week. I think it's a great week to get on Underdog if you have not already, because there's a lot of stuff sticking out, and this is one of them. Kelvin Gastelum over 54.5 significant strikes. I'm taking the higher here on Kelvin Gastelum. I think he absolutely goes higher than 54.5, just because I think this fight goes 3 rounds. I don't think this fight's touching the mat. I think there's going to be no wrestling. Maybe Gastelum does try to wrestle, but Curtis has a 100% takedown defense, and I think these guys are going to strike for 15 minutes. And yeah, I see Kelvin Gastelum honestly easily getting that higher, as long as there's no finish, and I really don't expect there to be one. So I like this Kelvin Gastelum higher. I'm going to be adding that to a lot of my plays this week. If you want to check it out, go to Underdog Fantasy, use that promo code DFSBTN and get you some free money there. The payouts on Underdog are phenomenal, and I think it's a great week to sign up now because there's a lot sticking out. All right, moving on. Live dogs. Rob Font, 7,700. Rob Font's probably my favorite dog on the slate outside of Alex Pereira, just because this guy has insane volume. Like, even in a loss, Against Marlon Vera, Rob Font put up just a massive score. Rob Font landed well over 200 significant strikes in his last fight. And yeah, Rob Font landing 6.38 significant strikes per minute. This is across a huge sample size and against really good guys. If Rob Font wins this fight, he's scoring well over 100. In the majority of Rob Font wins, he's scoring well over 100 because of that volume. I also think Rob Font has sneaky takedown upside as well. I think Rob Font is absolutely in play. The only thing that scares me with Rob Font is the durability. If I did not watch his last 2 fights, I'd be smashing Rob Font from a betting perspective, from a Draftkings perspective, from every perspective. But I think the durability is waning a little bit, and that's something that I don't love against Yanez. But if Rob Font's durability does hold up, I think he breaks the slate here at 7,700 for sure. But the durability is the one thing kind of holding me back from going crazy on it. Gerald Meerschaert, 7,500. Never, ever count out Gerald Meerschaert. Am I confident in Pyfer? Somewhat I'd say, but Gerald Meerschaert just always finds a way, and it's ugly a lot of times. Like, he's losing the fight up until he finds that submission, and that could be the case here. He's getting hurt, he's getting dropped, and then he finds that submission. Like I said, he's like a Paul Craig, and then guys like Paul Craig, guys like Gerald Meerschaert, guys that you can never ever count out. So you cannot count out Gerald Meerschaert. I'll have my fair share. I do think personally that Pyfer does knock him out early on, but if this does get extended, you got a very live dog here with Gerald Meerschaert with very good upside as well. Steve Garcia, 7,300. Honestly, love the price tag here for Steve Garcia. I think this fight's a lot closer than these salaries do indicate, and the line's closing a lot here. Steve Garcia, 7,300. I think he has finish upside, a lot of finish upside in this matchup. Xiaolian's been finished a massive 8 times. I question the submission defense of Xiaolian. And I question the striking defense of Xiaolian. The guy's very hittable. He's going to have a big reach disadvantage as well against Steve Garcia. Steve Garcia is huge for the weight class. So yeah, I think Steve Garcia is going to have a lot of opportunities here to find that finish. And if he does find that finish, he's going to score a ton here at 7,300. So very good fight to target. I think it's going to be an underrated fight to target as well. And love me some Steve Garcia at this price tag. And then finally, Christian Rodriguez, 7,100. I put Rodriguez on here just because I think this fight is going to score very well as a whole. I think there's going to be a ton of grappling. On the feet, it's Rodriguez all day, every day. I don't think it's going to be on the feet for long, but when it's on the feet, Rodriguez is going to have opportunities here. And I also think Rodriguez is going to have opportunities in the grappling, believe it or not. Like, Rodriguez is a very sneaky submission game, and Raul Rosas Jr., I think he's wise enough to not get caught, but maybe Rodriguez does catch him in something here. So Rodriguez, 7,100. I think he's a solid, low, I don't know if he's going to be extremely low owned, but just a low priced play here. Because I think the winner of this fight scores a ton. I'm more so on Raul Rosas Jr. I have a ton of Raul Rosas Jr., but I don't mind some shots on Christian Rodriguez. And then we also touched on Sam Hughes a little bit, just due to the fact that Amarim is very untested. She's never been out of the first round. And if Sam Hughes wins, she's probably going to break the slate and nobody's going to have her. So I actually have, don't want to say a decent amount. I think I have 20% Sam Hughes, just in case it turns out Amarim is a potential fraud, which maybe she is. But also don't mind Sam Hughes as a live dog. Pump plays here, Jorge Masvidal, 6,600. I mean, that price tag, man. I mean, it's very intriguing. Like, if he wins this fight, maybe it's a knockout. Gilbert Burns, his chin is questionable. We've seen him hurt a lot. We've seen him dropped a lot. We've seen him knocked out a lot. Or maybe he's able to stuff the takedowns. Like, if he stuffs the takedowns here against Gilbert Burns, he's not going to look 6,600. Yes, I think he loses. Yes, I think Burns probably wins this fight by decision, grinding it out, getting top control on top. But I think Masvidal does have a chance here. And at 6,600, I'm willing to take some shots as a punt. And then finally, the fade here is going to be one to Gilbert Burns, 9,600. I think he wins. I think he scores okay. I think he scores okay, but man, I'd rather save some money and go down and get even like a Kevin Holland, a Raul Rosas Jr. I'd rather go out there and get a Joseph Pyfer, a Carl Williams, even like an Ignacio Bahamondes, a Xiaolian, an Amarim. I think there's a lot better options this week. I'm hoping Gilbert Burns comes in with some ownership, and I think he might just because of the name, because of the co-main event slot. But I really struggle to see how he pays off this price tag at 9,600. All right, we did it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys have not already, leave a like. It does help a ton. Subscribe to the channel. That helps out as well. You can check me out on Twitter, DFS_numbers, Instagram, DFS by the numbers. Be sure to check out DFSbythenumbers.com. Pretty much everything is out. The article's out. Optimizer all updated, ready to go. Ownership projections. Everything is all good to go for 287 unless there's some late changes, which there always is, but we'll be able to update that. And then, yeah, check out Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code DFSBTN. Really recommend getting on there. It's a fun thing. It's a lot like Prize Picks, but man, these payouts are crazy there on Underdog, and I think a lot of stuff is sticking out this week. So be sure to check that out. Helps me out, and I think you guys will definitely like it. I do enjoy it myself. Best of luck, guys. UFC 287 should be a fun card. Enjoy it, and let's make some money for UFC 287. Should be a very, very good card. See you guys later.